Welcome to the exploration part of this workshop Wednesday, looking at painting atmospheric grey skies. The first part is over on Patreon, so if you're watching this on YouTube, take a look at the link below if you're interested in signing up for more in-depth exclusive workshops exploring colour and paintings of all styles, from loose realistic to abstract landscapes. Today I'm going to be painting these little explorations of a few colours to try to create some interesting greys. Interesting sort of greys and browns and all those associated sort of fairly neutral colours are really important for painting skies, and they can be sort of reasonably difficult to mix on the fly as you're painting your watercolour landscape. So I think it's probably quite useful to do quite a bit of experimentation with your colour mixing first. So in the introduction to this ongoing Patreon series, I talked about how to produce atmospheric grey skies through the use of stark contrasts, directional brushwork and perspective, and we explored those themes. So today I'm going to be exploring colour. First of all, we'll look at a traditional way to explore different colour mixing, and secondly, a way that I enjoy playing with different colours and just letting the colours themselves show me what they're capable of producing when they're mixed together very loosely. Now, I'm not suggesting you use the same colours as I do, because these are colours that resonate with me, that I use in my own work. And of course, you will find that you are drawn to different colours. So I suggest if you try either of these colour mixing methods, that you choose your own colours that you're drawn to, that you really like, or unusual colours that you've never tried before, and just have a go and see what happens. And especially if you're a beginner, don't be afraid to try out some sort of weird and wonderful colour combinations. It doesn't matter if they don't work, you will have learnt something from that. But as you explore colour and respond to colour and find the ones that you like, that you really enjoy using in your paintings, then that is what will start to give your paintings a really unique and expressive style of your own. So let's look at the first traditional way of exploring colour mixing in watercolour, and that's swatching. Now here we have a page full of swatches where I've been exploring the colour Venetian red and trying it out with 5 different blues, 4 blues plus Payne's grey. So what I've done for each column is I've had a bit of Venetian red and then a bit of the colour of my choice, and then I've added either more of the blue or more of the red and maybe more water, and then keep working down. Now the colours that I've used, that I've mixed Venetian red from left to right, are Venetian red and ultramarine blue, Venetian red and cobalt blue, Venetian red and cerulean blue, Venetian red and indigo, and Venetian red and Payne's grey. And of course, the range of colours I've achieved here is not exhaustive. This is subjective. These are the colours that I enjoyed exploring, that I enjoyed mixing. If you were to mix these exact same colours, I'm sure you'd go off in slightly different directions and find different colours. There are literally hundreds and thousands of slightly different colours and hues that you can achieve from mixing these colours up. And of course, you know, the world's your oyster. There's no limit to what you can do with this. You could add in a yellow, so you've got the equivalent of 3 primaries here, and see what happens if you mix those together. And you'll come up with some wonderful neutral greys and browns for your sky colours, which really will bring real unique atmosphere to your painting. So I'd encourage you to swatch out colours like this and just be curious. Just think about colours that either you really like or ones that you're curious about. Mix them together and just have the sort of attitude of, what happens if I mix this with this? What happens if I put a bit more of this into it, or if I use a bit less of that? How about if I wash it out with a bit more water? And then if you see a colour, you might think, oh, that needs just a little bit more yellow in it. So find a yellow that you think will be sympathetic and try mixing that in. So swatching can be a wonderful way of discovering amazing new colours for your skies and your clouds, and to really bring atmosphere into your paintings. So that's swatching, making deliberate choices about the kind of colours that you mix on the palette and then apply as a swatch to the page. Let's look at something a bit more experimental, where we let paint and water and gravity do their own thing by just placing them on the page and seeing what happens. I've got some cold pressed watercolour paper. I've taped it to my board with masking tape around the outside and divided it into 6 different panels with washi tape. My board's at an angle of about 30 degrees, and I'm just going to randomly mix a few colours together and see what happens. Just let them mix and marry and mingle, wet in wet, on the page. Obviously I'll have a little bit to do with the way that they flow together on the page with my brushwork, but this sort of exploration can be quite an interesting way of doing it. So from left to right, sort of around the top, I've got Prussian blue, then I've got Venetian red, sepia, and then at the bottom I've got indigo. So Prussian blue and Venetian red are my blue and my red, and then I've just got indigo and sepia to neutralise things, bring them down a bit. I'm just going to put in a few contour lines with my marker pen. It's a waterproof marker, and I'm just going to drag it across the page, partly to sort of disrupt the page so I don't feel precious about painting perfect paintings because there's all these scribbly lines there, but also to introduce just a little bit of random shape and tone to the paper, and that starts off the suggestion of a sort of an abstract landscape, so that when I paint these colours in, the eye will kind of imagine that they're seeing land and sky. And of course this is an exploration for atmospheric sky colours. So I'm splashing some paint across my page with a large wash brush. It's a Princeton Aqua Elite Mottler brush, 1.5 inches, and now you can see I'm just mixing a bit of each colour into the middle of my palette. I've got to be careful with both Prussian blue and Venetian red. They're really strong colours, which is why I've picked indigo and sepia to tone them down a bit. They could dominate, so just want to make sure that I can get a bit of each across the page, and then the slope of the page and the amount of water on the page in my brush and in the colour mixes should help the paint to sort of blend on the page and colour mix together on the page by themselves, and I'll see what sort of colours I get, and I can already see that there's some really beautiful atmospheric sky colours happening from this palette. I think you'll be surprised actually if you play around with colours of your own choice on the page in this same way. One of two things will happen. You'll fall in love with colour combinations that you would never have dreamed of using before, and thus your work will become quite unique looking and really exciting and interesting. Or you will find that you don't like the way the colours sort of play together on the page, and you'll probably learn not to use those colours together in the context of your own painting if you don't like the way they look. So I'm nearly there. I don't think I'm going to do much more to this. Just splashing the paint across. Now that I've splashed the paint across here and there, I can just put a few hints of colour over the tape just to differentiate very, very slightly, and to try and sort of increase the illusion or the suggestion of these being fairly sort of loose abstract landscapes. And I think you can already see how these wet in wet blends are merging together and giving me the sort of colours that I could never have made myself. Although now I'll be able to, after this, I'll be able to see what's happened and analyse and work out how much of each colour went into creating some of these really soft, gorgeous and striking colours here. And I'll probably be able to work them out through more exploration. So just a bit of texture with the palette knife, just again to enhance that illusion of a landscape. I know it looks a bit of a mess at the moment, but remember, this is a colour exploration for sort of creating these little mad abstract landscapes so that we can discover whether this combination of colours will give us some sky colours. So now I just need to leave it to dry completely. And just quickly, before I let it dry, have a look at the palette and you can see the way the colours are mixing with water on the palette and making some beautiful combinations. So I think this is quite a promising colour palette for an atmospheric sky. So now I'll leave it to dry. So here it is, everything's just about dry, and you can see there's been quite a dramatic colour shift with these colours, especially Venetian red and Prussian blue. They do dry back a lot lighter, which is a good thing with skies, but it's something that you have to learn, best learnt through exploration, trial and error, so they don't dominate too much. Now I'm going to remove the washi tape, and as I remove that tape and then begin to remove the masking tape, then I'm hoping that you can sort of see each individual landscape now kind of appearing a little bit more clearly. Now they've got these lovely defined borders. But more importantly, I hope that you can see that each suggested sky is really subtle, is really interesting, and very atmospheric. There are amazing mixes of colours, that the way they've washed together and blended, that I think, as I keep saying, that it would be really difficult to try and sort of work out through swatching. You probably could, but I think I prefer to experiment like this, and then when I've got these beautiful colour blends, then I can go back to my swatching sketchbook and these colours, and I can begin to experiment and see if I can match the proportions of each colour and of course the amount of water needed to get something close for future paintings. And that's the beauty of this method. I know exactly what colours I'm using here, and so therefore when I get something occurring like this randomly, I can then go and explore further and bring that sort of random uniqueness into my own work. So I think that's really interesting. So to remind you again, the colours that I've used are Prussian blue, Venetian red, sepia and indigo. And I think my next exploration will be using these same colours, but I'll probably use either yellow ochre or raw sienna, or maybe both, and see what they bring to the party, so to speak. See what bringing that third primary colour into the mix gives me in this colour blending exploration. If you're a beginner, I'll make a few quick suggestions here for you for colours to try. Maybe start with something like ultramarine blue, light red, yellow ochre, and bring some Payne's grey in as well to sort of neutralise it, or maybe neutral tint if you prefer, and then play with those colours and see what happens. But then also have a go at swatching them all out too, and then see the difference in your results between swatching out colours that you've mixed on the palette onto the page as solid blocks of colour, and then exploring in a sort of random way like this on the page, and just allowing the colours and the water to blend as they like, and just seeing what happens and what lovely beautiful transitions that you get from one colour to another and from one blend to another. So if you're a Patreon member, and if you haven't seen the introduction to this new series on painting atmospheric skies, then please pop over to Patreon, where you'll be able to see the introduction and see how it fits in with this part. And if you're interested in joining Patreon so that you can have access to more of these sorts of workshops, then please follow the link below. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave us a like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And as I said before, if you're interested in following either Morgana or myself on Patreon, the links are in the description below. So I'll see you again soon. Take care and happy painting. Bye.